So the ability, the capacity to have sex necessarily entails that one knows what sex is, whereas an individual who has not yet reached pubescence is a legitimate child. They have never experienced sexual feelings and therefore cannot possibly give their consent to an act which is completely out of their frame of reference. They're, and no matter whether they are 12 or 16, either way, if they haven't achieved pubescence, they are not capable of consenting to sex. It is a completely distinct paradigm, and once you have achieved pubescence, the paradigm has shifted inalterably and in the most distinct fashion possible. So then, this new paradigm is what we have to deal with. We have to, we cannot legislate a automated age at which sexual awakening takes place. It must be dealt with on a case-to-case basis, or else you run into all of those preceding irrationalities and completely unjustified, sanctions on individual relationships, as well as essentially making it easier to consent to allow legitimate rape to occur. And nobody is advocating that this is a ideal scenario, merely it is a preferable scenario, because at all times and places, people are and always have been and possibly always will be exploited. It is impossible to protect against that at all times and places, and there are many gray areas which are difficult to foresee. And yes, it's very conceivable that, say, a 42-year-old with his charm or status or wealth or power, whatever he has, could charm some 14, 15-year-old into a very unhealthy relationship, and that essentially he will use that girl, and even though she is physically capable of having sex, she's not really ready to have sex, psychologically speaking, and she's not really emotionally capable of making these decisions, of discerning love from usury, of lust from love, whatever, and that it is very easy for her to become abused in such a scenario. And I would not argue against this notion necessarily, but if you want to take this road of protecting the abused at all points in time with no conceivable way in which anyone could get around that, you better start shutting down every used car lot in America, right, across the globe. I mean, how many young couples on buying their first car have been deceived and taken advantage of because of their lack of experience? We don't say that they are incapable of making the decision to buy their own car, and if they want to go to a used car salesman, that is their prerogative, and we have no ability. We should, unless if you want to take this line of reasoning, then I guess you have to say that we do have the responsibility to prevent the inexperienced from taking leaps of their own and experiencing the world as it is. But unless you are willing to essentially say that take action against every single institution which does take advantage of the inexperienced, then you have no business specifically making that explicit distinction regarding sex, because as we know, if you are sexually mature, then you are capable of making the decision. Whether or not you choose to use discretion and wisdom is, more dependent upon your individual personality, just as in intellect, just as it would be that young couple buying their first car from a shady used car salesman. They are not necessarily bound to fuck up. It may or it may not happen. It's all at their discretion, and we cannot prevent them from utilizing that discretion once they are essentially adults. And these, in sexual terms, people who have reached pubescence are adults. There are many who there are many individuals who well into their into their chronological adulthood will not ever be capable of making emotionally stable decisions. So you wouldn't ever think to protect them, would you? Just because they have reached a magical chronological age, they still do need your protection against exploiters at all, in every sort of conceivable relationship they'll engage in. And yet the 14-year-old who is in fact capable of making such a decision herself, in sexual terms, who is 10 times more emotionally healthy than her 35-year-old counterpart, is, her lover is now become a criminal, and she has been, essentially giving this protection that the 30-year-old is truly in need of. And this sort of absurdity can't help but occur if you continually legislate with this such a sensitive and individualistic topic in such automated terms. There will be individuals who are capable of carrying on emotionally, psychologically healthy relationships from practically the moment they reach pubescence, and there are those who never will. But they will at least have the capacity to do so, given their discretion, and we must leave it to them, or else we risk hurling ourselves into these ridiculous crusades that make criminals of decent people, protect those who need no protection, and simultaneously abandon and neglect those who need it most while pretending to help those who do. The only consistent determination of one's capacity to consent to sex is one's capacity to have sex. That is as objective, consistent, and fair of a measurement as we can even approach, given the parameters of the human psyche.